criticize. I don't blame them. They didn't want to come. We do the same thing, isn't it? Well, you know, when she says about karma and about rebirth, how can you prove it? These kind of things. Yeah? So it's not for everybody. So also for kind of, also for Dharma groups, you know, sometimes people come, they stay for a while, then they disappear. It's fine. There's no problem. Be happy that you make it available for people who want to come and who want to continue, and that you know, people heard it. They plant very, very strong imprints on their mind that at one point in another life maybe they will continue. So that's always a good attitude. So one doesn't get too stressed about, oh, they're not coming anymore. What should we do? What are we doing wrong? Nothing. You offer the Dharma, good enough. You know, one person comes, it's enough, as Lama Zopa says. You talk to one person about compassion, fine. So, but they need to want to hear. So we have to check from time to time, you know. So for you now who are here and have to listen to me, we have to check. By the way, yeah, the door is open. So if you're not happy with what you're hearing, I don't get upset. I'm not angry and say, sorry, this is not for me, bye. It's fine, but say goodbye at the door. Yeah, so I know you're going in a friendly way. Don't force yourself to sit here and say, oh, what a waste of time. Could be. Could well be, you know. So so that means when we say about the kleshas again, we need to have antidotes, because that was the talk of the day, and it's almost, yeah, we still have a bit of time before the break. So antidotes or tools to work skillfully with these negative emotions, because open heart, I think we said, we all want, yeah? Well, I tell you, it's not easy to develop an open heart. You have to be a bit more enthusiastic about it. Because it's like me, otherwise going to the tennis court, you know, with the racket and go, oh, that court is really big. Ooh, you know, that is, you go and you hold it properly, say, I want to learn how to play tennis. So if you have that attitude, but then you need to be skillful also, you know, I can hold the racket like this and just go, whoa, and smash it. No, you have to be gentle, you have to be kind also. So this is why we started the day with the meditation on being friendly and being kind with ourselves. This is very good. And you have to encourage yourself sometimes, hey, this is good for you. You can talk, you know, sometimes you talk like this. You talk to yourself sometimes. Do you say, this is good for me, or do you say, this is good for you? Check. Go inside a little bit. Have a conversation with yourself. How do you say?
You.
So we have a feeling of one eye, right? So who is talking to whom here? Yeah, so there's no answers. You don't need answers to these questions. You only need to have the question. That sometimes you look inside, you go, so whom am I talking to? When I say this is good for you, or it is good for me, it can be both, it's fine. Yeah, whom am I talking to? You're talking to your laziness. The wisdom is talking to your laziness. And you don't need an I or an ego to talk to your laziness. So when you talk to yourself like this, with whom do you identify? With which one? The lazy one or the wise one?
The goodness.
Always with the wise one, isn't it? Sometimes the lazy one goes like, oh, come on, stop bothering me, just leave me alone. But hardly ever. Hardly ever. So there's no inherently existing I in that whole, you know, thing that we call our emotional world. And just to know that is really helpful. So what I was planned to do, because then I'll take a lot of notes, which I only translated into English from German, they're not from me. So I don't want to take credit from this if we get to the point of kind of talking about these things. What I said until now is more or less my cooking. But what for me I like to work with when I work with myself, because it's a lot of words, but it's really boom, right to the point. It is a German man called Tillman Bogart. I don't know if anybody knows him, probably not, because it's not translated into English, which is really strange. It's a book on psychology and Buddhism, Buddhist psychology. He is a psychologist, he's a psychiatrist, he's a medical doctor, he was a monk, he did long retreats, and he's disciple of Gedun Rinpoche, Kagyu tradition, right? And he's a fantastic teacher because he knows all the fields, right? So from being a monk, he went back to the streets to work with drug addicts. And he gives Dharma teaching, especially on Mahamudra. So he's fantastic, but I don't know why his books are not translated into English. So anyway, when he goes into Antidotes for negative emotions, he talks about 5 steps. So the first one is to pause. So when you are aware enough to see, oops, something arising, pause. Oh, if only we could have an app on this. Actually, Elad, you all know Elad fine. The crazy person who's really good with the design, with computers and stuff.
Yeah, I know him.
You know, computer program. You're the only one who knows Elad.
Yeah, because I'm a long time here.
Well, he left. He's traveling around in the world, doing his programs and having a great time. Looks like. Huh?
Yes.
You must still know him. Yeah, of course. So anyway, he designed an app where you can play a game with balls, kind of throwing the balls into something, but you have something like you have in the hospital on your finger, and if your breathing is not even, you can't play anymore. So he showed it to me. It's really amazing, So you have these things. You have to learn to be mindful of your breathing to be able to play the game on the telephone, on the app. That's fantastic. It's really good. So this is this whole thing. We should have an app like this that feels that, it's getting tight, that goes pause. Yeah, or in Hebrew, how would you call it in Hebrew? Stop. That's pretty international. Stop, everybody understands. Stop. Stop. Don't react. And then you go inside, right? You go inside and you see what's going on. And already creates a bit more space. But you need to do it. It creates space. Why? Because when I said these imprints ripen, because they need an object outside. So anger is glued to the situation outside. Somebody wants to kind of come and pull you away and say, oh, come on, let's go and have something to eat. And you go, nah, leave me alone, I'm not hungry. Anger lies, all the time. So when you come inside, you're not in the object anymore, so the emotion has no food. It will still turn, it will still be there, but it will lessen and there will be much more space. Then he says, apply an appropriate antidote that opens heart and mind. An appropriate antidote that opens heart and mind would be what?
Love and kindness.
Yeah. Or to say, hey, that's not what I want to be. Or make a selfie while you're angry. Ooh, that's a very good antidote for your anger, because you look horrible. If people are not afraid of you, you look ridiculous. If they're afraid of you, they're afraid of you. And we want neither. We don't want them to see us as ridiculous. When small children get angry, it makes us laugh, because they're so ridiculous, and we're the same. We just don't see it anymore, but it's exactly the same. Yeah, so an approach that opens heart and mind, so loving kindness, or, sometimes also when I'm quite unmindfully speak in a harsh way, it's usually on the telephone, and I hang up the phone, I think, that's not how I want to be. To reaffirm to ourselves again and again and again, that's not what I want to be. And then I take especially that person, that when I answer the telephone, I make sure that I have time to listen to her. So I'm not stressed. Otherwise I don't answer. I don't shut it off, I just don't answer. Because shutting off is like so cruel. How do you feel when somebody shuts you off? You say, oh yeah, they're busy. Is that your first thought? No. So don't shut people off. Or shut them off and say, I'll call you back, or something like that. This is also what we did last weekend in the 8th chapter. You go into the I, not into the person, not into the other person, but into the I, into the ego of the other person. Then you will know how the person feels. We're not going far enough. We're only going to the person, but we don't know how the person feels, but we know how his ego feels, when we do. Of course, so that's the second step. We will talk about antidotes probably in the afternoon. Then the third step is we take on a wider view. We actually go to the other side. And then the fourth step, this is good when you know about emptiness. You try to find the nature of the emotion. You try to find the emotion. And then you just stay there and you watch what's happening. It's very interesting. To be with the sensations. That's what we're so lucky that our emotions are not in the head. Because then, if they would only be in the head, we wouldn't be able to figure them out. We wouldn't be able to label them. But because they have a flavor, because they have a sensation, we can label them. Do you understand? And that's where we need to go, into the bodies. That's why also maybe, I know some of you are therapists. Sometimes people are really not well, they're totally out of their bodies, they're not in their body anymore. When you ask them, where does it hurt? This is not from me, it's from Tara Brach. But it's such a skillful question, because they have to come into the body. It cannot hurt anywhere else than in somewhere here. It cannot hurt in your head. That's what we have to ask ourselves also. Where does it hurt? And then, what do I need? Something realistic. If you say, I need to have more wisdom. Well, I don't. There's not much point. So usually it's acceptance, love, and we can give that to ourselves by just putting the hand there. It's so simple. Don't feel ashamed. It's all right. We all have pain. We all suffer here. We're all in the same boat. We all feel inadequate, not good enough, this and that. Yeah. We'll talk about this when we come to jealousy in the afternoon. Also from him, not from me. Okay, so then I won't tell you what happens when you look at the emotion. You have to find out yourself, I think. Then the fifth step, that's the interesting one. You stimulate your kleshas to be able to train. When you are good at the first 4 steps, kind of pausing, applying an antidote, taking a wider view, and looking at the nature of your emotion, you go into places where they get stimulated to train. So if you want, again, we can take tennis. If you always take somebody that is inferior, that is even worse than you, you will always win the match. If you want to grow and really to learn how to play, you need to take people that are better than you. Yeah? And the more you train, the better you get at detecting these emotions. So these are the 5 steps that you do with your emotions. So the first one, of course, the main one is what? Of the kleshas, always the bestseller, on top, always present. Which one? No.
Ignorance.
That's interesting, yeah? So maybe people have never heard that. Yeah. Did you hear it? The others who heard it many times, first thing that comes up, anger. It's not. That's not the top. It's not the bestseller. That is always present. So which one is always present? Huh?
Attachment.
No.
Ignorance.
Huh?
Ignorance.
Ignorance. And it's not... it's not an inactive ignorance, it's an active ignorance. There, Shaket, you can see how the mind can be active. The mind can add things that are not there, or the mind can take away things that are there. So maybe we need to make, yeah? Maybe the people who need to go to the toilet just go, because if I make a break and everybody goes, it takes half an hour until everybody's been to the toilet. But if you need to go to toilet, we'll stop at 12:30, so then that will be the lunch break. Yeah, I know it says morning session with a short break in the middle. I forget. Okay, so it's an active ignorance who adds inherent existence, adds good things that are not there, adds negative things that are not truly existing from their own side either. And especially it adds that kind of thing, I, me, separate from the body and mind. Okay? So, and that kind of ignorance is always, all the kleshas are accompanied by fear. This is where, when Tal said, there's only 2 toilets, right? So you figure it out a bit, like, anyway, you can queue up. So I'm sorry if I held you up so long. Maybe in the afternoon we'll make a break. So it's always, all the kleshas are accompanied by fear. This is why fear is not one of the mental factors in Tibetan Buddhism. It's quite interesting. It goes always there anyway. As long as there's feeling of I, me, there's fear that something will happen to this precious thing. So, and what it is, what ignorance is lacking proper awareness. The awareness to see I am not the only one on this planet. The awareness to see my happiness, my suffering depends on my karma. The awareness to see everything is impermanent. The awareness to see everything needs causes and conditions to arise, no point for hope and fear. And the awareness to see emptiness. The awareness to see how the mind projects things outside. So maybe I just read what he says, because he can put it in much better words than I. So a proper awareness realizes the real existence as dynamic, not graspable, no substance, and without essence, just flowing. What I use, a river. If you look at the river and you have a habit to go jogging at the river, you think every day it's the same river. I mean, this river is not for 1 second the same river, because the water that comes is always different water. But we call it a river, we give it a name, it becomes the real river. It's just water. And this is our mind stream also. It's just like a flowing river, it's never the same. And then there's sometimes beautiful things floating on it, sometimes garbage floating on it. This is the mental factors. But it's dynamic, it flows, it goes, it does things all the time. There's no substance, there's no essence. And this is why they can manifest as a dependent arising in a distinctive way, like all the experiences we have. So these 2 aspects of reality are inseparable and connected to each other. Relative reality, that things do exist and flow and have function, but not truly existing, like, being empty of true existence, which is ultimate level of reality. And they're always together. We cannot separate them. Sometimes people say, oh, I just realize emptiness and then that's it, I go there. No, you cannot separate these 2 truths. So dependent arising and emptiness, it always goes together. Ignorance also means to hold the I for real. Like this, also the other is taken as real. This is how disturbing emotions develop. Me here with my disturbing emotions, different and separate from the other. This splitting into subject and object of the experience prevents liberation. Sometimes you hear the word dualistic view, right? Me here, everything out there, separate from my mind. Maybe you were there, maybe you were not there, I don't know, but it looks to me as if you're there. As if I'm in a dream, like I was this night, and again I kind of failed. I used to have a restaurant. I failed at serving all the customers to their satisfaction. Oh, it's a reoccurring dream. So it's like, and I was running around and doing things, and it's like, 40 years ago I left the restaurant. But it looked very real. So whether you're here or not, maybe you are, maybe not, but I do my best to satisfy you. Yeah? But when I realize that it's just a dream, I stop running and tell them, hey, come on, just leave me alone, or something like that. But anyway, yeah? So me here with my disturbing emotions, different and separate from the other. So this is the meaning of duality, the being separate of experiencer and experience. So now it's not outside things, but me. Me having the experience, right? Me having the anger. Me having this, we split it. It's just in our mind stream, yeah? So the clinging to the separate I creates tension. All conflicts start from there. Because of lacking awareness, there is no wisdom that this I is in reality a dynamic process. In this I feeling, there is no findable permanent I. It is only a movement of mind without any substance. Out of ignorance, we pamper and protect this I that does not even exist. We are caught in this self-centeredness that it seems almost impossible to have another view than from the perspective of this I. This is what Shantideva encouraged us to do last weekend, to go to the other's perspective, to really go there and see how it feels when you are looking down at the homeless person, throwing them some coins. You, the Bodhisattva. Oh, so noble, yeah? If we examine this feeling of I, we will not find anything that is a real I or a soul. So it feels real, it feels permanent. You know, if I tell you now, fish out your eye, then does it feel different than from this morning? The I. Does it feel different? If you say yes, then you haven't found the one that we're looking for. Because the one that got up to said, I'm looking forward to go, or I have to go there, that one, that I feels totally different. It feels totally the same, sorry. It feels totally the same. If you think it feels different, you haven't looked. Because, if you say, okay, no, from this morning maybe not different, but from last week maybe different, then when did it change? It cannot change from one moment to the other, So if you go back to when you were in kindergarten maybe, yeah? And then you have a group photograph, and the first one that we look for is who? Me. Then somebody says, which one is you? And then you go, you don't say, you gotta go, this was me. You say, this is me. Here, I am here. 5 years old. Then I go, I wouldn't have recognized you. But this feeling, this feeling of knowing who I am then and now is the same. And that's wrong. It's okay to know who you are, but you're not the same as when you're 5 years old. But sometimes we react in the same way. Yeah? Okay, so that this permanent, independent, not depending on body and mind, and what is it? And unitary, like only one. Yeah, we only have one I. Yeah, well, it's good because otherwise you get too confused. So it's okay. But the I that we have is just the identity. It's the label we give to this body and mind, which is changing moment by moment. Yeah. It's also, Shantideva says a really interesting thing in the 8th chapter. He says, two substances that we would never call I, all of a sudden we call it me, I. the body. Two sperm and egg, come together. The consciousness enters it. We put up our flag. I, my body, I, right? It's ridiculous. But that's what this confusion or this lacking awareness is doing. And it feels so natural, because if you hear this for the first time, you go, what is he talking about? Of course it's I, body, I, of course. But then when you look, and you go, okay, which part of the body is the I? The legs, the belly, the head, this and that. And then you go, okay, well, then you go, and it's all of it is I, right? Then you go, okay, if my hand gets cut off, then you say I have an incomplete I because I only have one hand. At what point your body stops to be I? Or, even worse, we all want to have a very attractive body, right? But if somebody comes and says, oh, I love you so much because of your body, then the I is not happy. What? I'm not my body. Then we say like this, and we feel insulted. Whereas somebody is not, no sex and no love and all this, says, wow, you're such a beautiful... No, even then, I don't know. We say, you are so beautiful. Well, it's not the mind, obviously, it's the body, right? That's what they see. I am so beautiful. It's your body. If you go, oh, wow, you put on a lot of weight. By the way, you don't have to tell anybody, they do know. If they are overweight, they lose weight, please tell them. Because then the effort was not for nothing. Somebody notices it. Yeah? And it's okay, you're not your body. That's the good news. The body, at one point, they will die and they will be burned. No, not here. They will be buried, eaten by worms. In where I am, it will be burned. So, luckily, we're not the body. Anyway, so if we examine this feeling of I, we will not find anything that is a real I or soul or whatever you want to call it. Externally, we do find the end of me, yeah, and the beginning of the other when we touch other. I am here, the other is there. But how is it in the mind? Is not the experience of other in just my mind? Good question, isn't it? So Descartes, who says, I think, therefore I am, but from the fact of thinking, we cannot deduct a real stable I. Thinking is a dynamic process and changes all the time. The question is, if there is somebody that thinks. There's a very good book on this by Epstein. It's called Thoughts Without a Thinker. In order to hear, do we need a hearer? In order to see, do we need a seer? In order to smell, do we need a smeller? What do you think? Yes or no?
Yes.
Somebody separate who smells? No. We need a nose that works, and the nerves, again, neuroscience, no clue what makes the... It's a good question also. The food that we are eating, which transforms into flesh and bones, or I don't know what, when does it become I? When does the carrot become I? If you eat meat, when does the killed animal become I? When we vomit, I don't think so, eh? You're not saying, oh, that's part of my I anymore. Do you see that you need some humor in this whole thing? That you can look at it with the kind of relaxed mind. Oh, there's some I here. It's no I yet when it's vomit, but in the intestines, some of it goes into the body, some of it comes out again. When you make caca, some of I came out here. Yeah, this we would never do. Yeah, but then to think that the body is I, this we feel reasonable and logic. Yeah, the other would say, oh, come on, it's ridiculous. But then to see this as I, that's true, that's logic. Also, so then, thoughts are momentary moments of the mind Where are the thoughts of yesterday? Everything changes.